अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. As this episode of Hafta drops, while we're recording this on the 6th of February, by the time this episode reaches you, which is tomorrow, it's going to be Newslaundry's 14th birthday.
Yay! Happy birthday!
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Happy
to
birthday.
You.
14 years ago is when Newslaundry went online. Of course, work on this started in 2010, but because of competing interests, it was halted. And then it restarted in 2011 and finally went online in 2012. So those of you who have made this 14-year journey possible, thank you. This is not Newslaundry's birthday. We'd like to believe this is the birthday of an entire coming together of a group of people, which includes many of you, who said news has to fundamentally change. The structure of how it's funded, supported, structured even within the organization, where, in the beginning we said there's no Newslaundry position, and we've written a piece on that, the side edits, the nameless edits, the paper position, etc., etc. And in that celebration, we are launching our campaign, which is going to run all month, called I Built Newslaundry. I Built NL campaign. We want all of you to participate. Many of you have already sent in your messages. We'd like to send more. What they look like, here's a little example.
I am Manisha Pande. I watch TV news so you don't have to. I run a newsroom the way it should be run. I built Newslaundry.
मैं रमाकांत शुक्ला, मैं एक co-founder हूँ. I built Newslaundry.
I'm Madhu Trehan. I build news media companies. I've built quite a few. I also built Newslaundry.
I 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 built Newslaundry.
So current colleagues, former colleagues, subscribers, supporters have all sent us their greeting of I built NL. Tell us what else you built, because you also built NL. So do scan this QR code. Share this message. We'll share it with you on WhatsApp. It'll be on our WhatsApp groups. Tell other people to be a part of this movement, changing news. And it is very relevant this week because we know what happened to Washington Post. We will talk about it later in the show. But yeah, thank you, Jayashree, and thank you, Manisha, for all your messages as well.
Yes, and I think Hafta listeners should certainly send us a video because they've been listening to us since...
Yeah, 2014, 13? I think
and that has really built Newslaundry, our listenership, if that's a word. You've heard our jokes, you've heard our views, our opinions, rants, sometimes misinformed, sometimes very well informed. So I think Hafta listeners, especially, please tell us how you've been listening to us, how you built Newslaundry, and how you've one of the first movers in terms of paying for a podcast.
Yeah.
So they are your early movers.
Yes, you were the ones, the pioneers who told us this is possible.
Yeah.
When everyone told us it's not. So thank you, 14 years of ad-free news. Our colleagues, our salaries are not paid for by billionaires or government ads or corporate ads. They're paid for by you. The QR code will flash throughout this show. Do scan it. Share this clip with others. Tell others about Newslaundry. Tell others about journalism that must be supported by you, the news consumer. With that, we will have two guests joining us later in the show. One, TM Krishna, celebrated singer, We the People of India, Decoding a Nation's Symbols. He'll be joining us later in this show to talk about this book and about what happened with art, how it's a more restrictive place today. Many shows are cancelled, many artists are cancelled, how that impacts him, how that impacts politics in general. And we'll also be joined by Colonel Shukla, who will tell us about the recent controversy regarding the former army chief's yet unpublished book. But before that, we will get the headlines. So Jayashree, can you please do the honors?
Yes, here are the headlines of the week. There was chaos as the budget session began on February 1st, which is a Sunday. Leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, caused an uproar when he tried to quote passages from former Army Chief General M.M. Naravane's unpublished memoir. The book 4 Stars of Destiny has been awaiting government clearance since 2024. He basically wrote that top BJP leaders failed to give clear directions during the 2020 military standoff with China. So while Gandhi tried to read it, he was repeatedly interrupted by Rajnath Singh, Amit Shah, and others. The BJP then accused Gandhi of insulting Indian soldiers and breaking parliamentary rules. 8 MPs were suspended for throwing papers at the speaker. Protests continued outside. The Lok Sabha finally approved a motion of thanks to the president's address, but without the PM's speech. This is the first time this is happening since 2004. The speaker said he asked Modi to skip the Lok Sabha because he had, and I quote, credible information that several members from the Congress would create an unprecedented incident. I saw in the paper that he also said some women MPs were standing near the well of the house, which I just thought was a very...
So what?
What a threatening thing to witness as a prime minister.
Some of the primetime shows, last time I had the patience to watch them, but at least the thumbnail, they were suggesting that they're going to be discussing or debating, I don't know what the discussion debate is, that there was a plan to attack or assault the Prime Minister in Parliament. Is that, did you or your team get time to watch these primetime shows, Manisha?
No, I didn't watch yesterday's primetime. But yeah, that seems to be the suggestion from whatever little I've seen on Twitter. It's the same story as what primetime had done back when the Prime Minister got stuck in a traffic jam in Punjab.
Yeah.
The flyover incident, the plot to kill the Prime Minister. And by the way, there was a real plot to kill the Prime Minister, which everyone ran with almost 8 years ago on Bhima Koregaon. Nothing happened of it. So, I mean...
So what was... I don't know,
They said that
there would be a bunch of people would get together and in Delhi streets...
Correct. And they said they were planning to do some inappropriate incident near the Prime Minister's chair. The allegation mostly being that these would be women who are being used as a front to sort of carry out whatever the inappropriate incident would be near the Prime Minister. So they said that this will tear apart democracy in India or whatever. So therefore, the Prime Minister is advised not to come. And so he didn't come because we have to uphold the high tradition of the House. So it was just... And then I think the Speaker also said that it was not appropriate for him to come because, it would tear apart the democratic traditions of the
I think what
House.
they could have done is they could have... My conspiracy is that maybe they knew that they were going to discuss Epstein. Modi and Hardeep Puri's name in Epstein files.
Yeah, there's some emails that have come out.
That's the only thing. Right? Yeah, like it names
Anil Ambani.
A lot of Anil Ambani also. Modi is not personally talking to Epstein, just to be clear, but his name is there. But I think like that could be the only thing that they could be so like jittery about.
I don't know.
What else? Like what? On this book you can't. You've already done enough on the book. How much like the PM shouldn't be worried about that?
Who knows, man? But this is
Maybe
bizarre.
women MPs were planning to do that.
I think of the gang
This is
of
just
women
conspiracy.
MPs. I'm just finding so
I think
hilarious.
gang of
Or they
women MPs would have
had
said,
learned jiu-jitsu. And they
Just-
just... And they'd be like a... Anyway.
Terrible. Okay. Also on Feb 1st, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her 9th budget. Some highlights. The total expenditure is 53.5 lakh crore. There are no changes announced in income tax slabs. Fiscal deficit estimated to be 4.3% of GDP. There are increased allocations to the Home Ministry and Intelligence Bureau. Equity markets reacted sharply on budget day. The BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty dropped heavily.
The last couple of weeks...
Then it went up also after trade.
Everything's been going
Then
up
it
and
went
down. The AI announcement, all the tech stocks collapsed 2 days
That's
ago.
life, guys. Up one day, down another.
Gold and silver have moved up and down 25% within a week. So yeah, just get used to it.
Donald Trump announced a trade deal with India that slashes US tariffs on Indian goods to 18% from 50%. He said this is in exchange for India halting Russian oil purchases, lowering trade barriers. He announced the deal, saying that he had a call with Modi. He also said India will now buy oil from the US and maybe Venezuela.
And on cue, amazing associations like FICCI, etc. put out full-page ads thanking Modi ji for making this possible.
Dhurandhar he is. After this, all TV news was running that. Dhurandhar Modi ne dikha diya.
Achha, Dhurandhar Modi.
Surrender nahi, Dhurandhar.
Surrender. So basically everyone thanked Modi ji. And there was this entire felicitation ceremony thanking him for making this possible.
In Parliament, garlanding him and everything.
But we don't even know what the deal says. I
No,
think
no.
somebody had asked Jairam Ramesh also. No, had asked Jairam Ramesh in a thing. What are the details of it?
Jaishankar.
Sorry. Somebody had asked
How can you
Jayashree what are
confuse
the
the two?
details of it, and he said you should go ask the Commerce Secretary. Why? Why should we go to
That
the
they are
Commerce
in
Ministry?
direct conversation and I'm not part of the trade deal. So he'll be able to tell you more.
Also, confusingly, the Agriculture Secretary of America had tweeted saying, great news for American farmers. All your stuff is being exported to India. So it's just...
Yeah.
This
We
was
need
the
details.
most reciprocal aspect of this deal was that Trump lackeys, Modi lackeys were both praising their dear leaders.
But they'll do that anyway.
Both took claim for, best
Really?
deal for America, best deal for India. But the fine print is not out yet.
Manisha, I was hoping for a Trump imitation, but you did not do it. BJP leader Yumnam Khemchand Singh took oath as the Chief Minister of Manipur, ending president's rule in the state. Tensions continued, however, because two umbrella organizations of Kukizo Group said MLAs from the community cannot and should not participate in the formation of a government. Protests erupted on Thursday evening as well. The Supreme Court has verbally asked the union government to rethink the continued detention of activist Sonam Wangchuk, who has been detained since September, considering that his health is not that good.
Which is, even if it was good, I don't see why he should be detained for so long without charge.
The state council said that he has framed India as them.
The Indian government
Tried to create disaffection. This is dystopic.
We all have basically we should all become North Korea.
In quite dramatic scenes, I thought, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee appeared in the Supreme Court on Wednesday. She alleged her state was being targeted through the SIR of the electoral rolls. She also asked why the process was not being carried out in BJP-governed Assam.
Yeah, she addressed the Supreme Court. She's a fighter, man.
Led from the front.
I think people like Akhilesh and gang can learn a thing or two from her.
A book discussion at Mumbai's prestigious Kala Ghoda Arts Festival featuring activist Anil Teltumde was cancelled on the orders of the Mumbai police. Participants were asked to delete their social media posts about the event. Additionally, actor Nasiruddin Shah said he was disinvited from a separate Mumbai University event at the last minute without explanation or apology. The Uttarakhand police have filed a case against two Hindu men who opposed the harassment of an elderly Muslim shopkeeper by Bajrang Dal members on Jan 26th. A video of it went viral. Multiple right-wing goons threatened the two men as well.
Yeah.
Rajya Sabha MP Sunetra Pawar took oath as Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister. She replaces her husband Ajit Pawar, who was killed in a plane crash last week.
But sorry, before we move on, the Uttarakhand incident, wonderful Anmol Preetham went there. He has filed 2 reports already from there.
Yeah, and a third one is coming where he's interviewed the guys who led the attack on this gym owner.
So please
Deepak Mohammed.
Yeah, please check
Mohammed
those
Deepak.
out. And if you'll notice, this is something that Primetime should have actually...
Yeah.
Because it has all the elements that make for compelling viewing. You have video evidence, there is conflict, there is combat. If you were just to look at even dispassionately, even you have politics is ignorant, just as piece of television. But it was completely ignored, as if it never happened.
In cricket news, Pakistan says it'll boycott the T20 World Cup 2026 match against India on Feb 15th. Although Pakistan has confirmed its participation in the tournament itself, boycotting a single match could prompt action from the ICC.
Yeah.
The Washington Post has announced it's laying off 1/3 of its workforce, sharply scaling back the paper's coverage of sports and foreign news. Bureau chiefs from India, Jerusalem, Ukraine, and most Middle Eastern countries were also laid off in the purge.
So we'll just discuss a bit before, TM Krishna comes in, and Jayashree will also tell you how you can get a signed copy of TM Krishna's book. But before that, on the Washington Post culling, 1/3 of the staff, several newspapers, including Al Jazeera or news platforms, have done this entire comparison of how much Jeff Bezos has spent on other stuff. And I see a lot of, commentary, gyan on this. Someone blaming markets, someone blaming ideologies, someone saying this is what happens, which I really find bizarre. Also because, of course, everyone's a commentator today. If you don't have people like Sohail Seth or Abhijit Iyer Mitra, then you'll get some other chomu from the street to talk about anything
And
from this thing.
ChatGPT is really democratized this year because everyone's just putting out, you can tell that a lot of the stuff is just AI, essays that people are posting on and giving gyan on.
Shashi Tharoor has come down pretty heavily on the firing of his son. In fact, we had
him over.
We've had, Ishan on the Hafta. We've had...
just last week, right?
Jerry, week before last, I think.
Week before last.
We've had Jerry and...
we had Joanna.
We've had Pranshu for our Media Rumble.
For Media Rumble, we've had Jerry on the Media Rumble as well.
Yeah.
So right now, if I understand correctly, they have no one in India?
No, they have their India staff.
Okay, the India staff.
So
okay.
it's just Pranshu who's officially been asked to leave.
But Jerry also put out a tweet.
But,
but
Jerry
he was Middle East,
Middle
correct,
East.
he was in
he's
Middle
the
So
East.
Middle East
Jerusalem
Bureau is
Bureau
completely
chief.
hollowed out.
So
apparently.
Washington Post will have nobody in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
I personally think a good way of actually creating the new media ecosystem, and I've said this in the past, on Twitter, you cannot really, some people have tagged us, I think, Manisha, you also, that, can you explain how the economics of this works, what is the way of avoiding this? I think we've discussed it at length in other haftas, but just briefly, I want to say, just like the days of those big studios that owned all their stars, like if you go into, there's a wonderful podcast, you must remember this, it's on Hollywood. In the 40s and 50s, even the biggest stars that you know of, studios pretty much owned them. They tell them how many cigarettes to smoke. They tell, especially the women. That studio control kind of collapsed in the 90s, maybe 2000s. It's come back a little more significantly, but it's not what it used to be. Similarly, media companies have to evolve. That days of, the Jains and the Puris and the Bhartiyas being this big media moguls is gone. A network of associated organizations that believe in a kind of journalism that they all agree upon, and there will be some ideological affinity as well. And they need not have those, bureaus everywhere. You can have partnerships, just like we and News Minute have in the South and the North. And we are looking for other partners in the Northeast and other parts of the country. That can happen internationally as well. Governments will make it harder and harder with regulations coming in, how you're making payments, how you share revenue, etc. coming in. But the fact is, it is not an economic decision for Jeff Bezos. At least not directly from this product point of view. If you can afford to, when's the last time anyone paid whatever $45 million for the production and another $35 million for the marketing of a non-entity like Melania? It's not, these are not economic decisions. So all of you who are failing economics, first of all, fucking learn economics. Understand it. Just knowing a few words is not enough. What is a public good? What is market failure? In which cases has it happened in the past? In which cases can markets are not working on their own? There is a lot of regulation. For example, how many of you know that a channel today in India is not free to charge whatever they want on Tata Sky and all that comes? There is a regulation around it. If I say, you know what, I don't want to be free on Tata Sky. If you want to subscribe to my channel, news channel, you pay $50. I can't do that. So fucking educate yourself before peloing gyan. Regulation has not left market on its own. It's not a market decision. It is a very complicated decision. And also, I'd like to remind you, economics is not just a study of money. Economics is a study of societies and all that is valuable there. And in some cases, it is material. In some cases, it becomes more complicated than that. So it is a social philosophy, not just a financial or monetary philosophy. With that rant, what have you heard of this Washington Post layoffs? And I mean, the Middle East being ignored, the most important place in the world, is bizarre to me. That cannot be an economic decision.
And that cannot be an interest-based decision. Okay, fine. American reader may not be interested in what's happening in India. So you can justify that, okay, why do we need so many reporters there? Local person can report. But Gaza has literally sparked culture wars in the US. Palestine and Israel is right now, in terms of pure economics numbers, it gets the eyeballs. We know that. So of course, if he's culling that out, it's not because of...
It's not an economic decision.
Yeah, but I think, so it's been very interesting for journalists because the groups that I am part of, again, there's like fierce debate about what has happened with this layoff because there are a lot of existential questions that this layoff raises for journalists. One is this thing of how to make money doing news, and that's something that everyone now is really thinking of. And it is this peculiar breed where it's not... News has survived not because it's a business that makes money ever in history, despite it. And I think that's what's happened with billionaires who acquire... I mean, I was discussing this with someone that billionaires who acquire media don't do it for the love of media, but for influence. And then they're willing to pour in as much money as they want to just keep their influence going. We've seen that with Ambani. We've seen that with Adani. In fact, murmurs within the NDTV say that Adani doesn't want to put in money into this. You figure your shit out. I'm not going to pour in mine. Now, he may be making billions from other things, solar, infra, green energy, but he's not going to now save NDTV. You figure your shit out. Whereas you contrast this with a legacy owner that became a billionaire because of news. Like the NYT. They're rich because they got into the business of news, and there is a heart there to make news work. So we'll do it by selling online cooking recipes. We'll buy Wordle. We'll do gamification. And we'll use that money to pump it back into news. So fundamentally with Bezos, he didn't buy this for the love of news. It's for influence. And in Trump era, that influence has upturned. What does it mean to be influential in Trump era? Certainly not great reporting from Gaza or India. And the other thing I think which was very interesting, with someone pointed out on Twitter also, that there is a cultural phenomena here also, which Americans, as they go inwards, they're not going to care so much about what's happening in the world around. And a lot of foreign correspondence or foreign reporting for American media was a soft power thing. It wasn't just informing, it comes from the notion of the savior, the notion of the leader of the democratic world.
Leader of the free world.
So we'll call out democratic backsliding in Iran, in India, and a lot of money was put in because it believed in that self-image.
और अब कहाँ किस मुंह से बोलोगे?
Now when the self-image collapses, why should we put money into these? This seems like an elitist thing. And I think what is very interesting in this, and this is a trend that I'd like to see if it holds true. We, over the last 15 years, saw the collapse of local news. And the traditional thinking was that local papers have died, local news is dead. And suddenly now everyone wants to go back hyper-local. If you look at Post's explanation also, they've said that we don't want to be relevant to the whole world, but we want to be very relevant to our own audience. So is he going to take this money out and then pump it back into very granular Washington, D.C. reporting, which also gives him favor? Because doing something in America, hard-hitting report on Trump, remains to be seen if that is promoted or not. But it'll have more influence for Bezos than doing a hard-hitting piece in India.
But he's laid off the Metro team. The Metro team is the local team.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know, this hyper-local push, where does that really go? Or if it's just like a subterfuge to eventually...
Like business decisions going on at some point, like the Metro team being laid off makes absolutely no sense. Sports, books, and I think that one quote I'm seeing constantly online is that Watergate was a local story. It started off as a local boring story that was just chased for a really long time until, my God, it suddenly unraveled, and then they realized this is Watergate. So I feel like for me, I'd set aside my
dislike for Western press.
Yes, and for out and out propaganda arms of an American empire. But that aside, I feel like the larger trend is just shocking. It's that you live in a sort of world where media outlets can be bought by billionaires and then gutted like private equity funds to maximize profits. And I think after he sort of blocked the endorsement of Harris and so on and so forth, there was always very clear signs that the Washington Post was moving very strongly towards becoming a conservative paper, especially when you read their editorials and so on. I think there's some sort of, it feels like they are trying to become like Politico, less about the foreign policy and just about like what's happening in the Capitol and so on. But liberals, for all their faults, read newspapers. The billionaire's stupidity has tanked a newspaper and now he's gutting it. And I think this is what billionaires do. You can either buy an NDTV or a Washington Post and trash it completely, or you use it as a mouthpiece. And end of the day, the Adanis and the Bezoses will always have far more money than the shareholders of a newspaper. So I feel like they fed the wolf and now the wolf is biting them. So that is my thing. But one thing about Washington Post itself, I think this is how a newspaper can serve public interest in so many ways when you report and stuff. Like when you're fundamentally working in the service of people, your coverage, I think it's a big loss for India because Washington Post stories on Adani in India, I think, were really strong, solid journalism, the kind of which that we don't see from a lot of Indian media houses. And just a large newspaper, the sort of people, the processes, the rigor, the editorial standards, these are valuable things. And even though I personally think the Post has historically used it for nefarious purposes, but it's fine.
Even Jerry's pieces on Netflix and Amazon Prime in India, and how popular culture is being completely twisted.
Didn't he also do that entire series on Meta?
In the run-up to elections, the whole campaign on communal campaign and how systematically it was run.
So
those were great stories.
So you cannot leave news to the mercy of billionaires, which is why from the beginning, Newslaundry has been ad-free. We do not need any ads, not Sarkari ads, not Patanjali ads, not Ambani Adani ads. Here's a QR code. Support journalism. This is, we can use the cliche as a wake-up call, but there have been many wake-up calls in the last 14 years. When Newslaundry was envisaged, there was a reason we said it will be ad-free. So, and at that time, ad rates were about 10 times higher than they are today online. So do scan this QR code. Tell your friends, if you don't support journalism, it will die. And democracy cannot exist without journalism. You know, a lot of fools are saying, who needs news? Dear God, I don't even know what to say to such people. It's like, who needs books? You need news. No society has survived democratically without news. Do not leave it to billionaires. QR code, link, share, do all that. And the one thing that people, you know, they think that as a given, a first principle, an economic decision is always a quarter-to-quarter or year-on-year decision. For example, since we've talked about metals and how they're going up and down, copper is the next metal that many analysts say is going to boom because there's not enough copper in the world to actually take care of demand. It is actually used in many production and electricals, etc. 25% of world copper comes from Chilean mines. There is a very large deposit of copper in North America, the largest in the USA. The company that is excavating that or wanting to excavate has already spent $2 billion in the last 15 years. They have not extracted a single gram. The horizon of actually making money of mining copper can be from 10 to 20 years. That means you could be pouring in money without getting revenue back. It also depends on how long your horizon is. If you think I want to set up a business in India and that business should not be a crony capitalist enterprise, I need to have an environment which is transparent. That can be a reason to put in money into media, which is also an economic reason. But it is not an economic reason that will give you returns in the next 3 months. It's way too complicated.
And especially news. It's not as simple as that, you know, your stories aren't getting clicks, so now we'll fire you.
Yeah,
like,
that's not how it works. It's just dumb. Right, we will welcome TM Krishna now, and then after that, later, Jayashree can tell you how to get a copy of this book. And we are joined by the author of We the People of India, Decoding a Nation's Symbols. You also know him as a classical singer, but right now you are here as an author and a commentator, and we have lots to discuss considering what's happening in the world of art, the purpose of art.
Absolutely.
But before we do all that, as we say in Hindi, your औपचारिक introduction. TM Krishna is a renowned Indian Carnatic vocalist, author and social activist. His new book, We the People of India, that's this. You can get a signed copy, I'll tell you how later. Explores the history, philosophy and cultural significance of India's national symbols, including the flag, the anthem and constitution. And the book aims to critically examine these symbols' impact on contemporary democracy and citizenship. So thank you for joining us and making the time. Is Delhi treating you well so far?
So far, so good.
Right.
I'm still wearing the mask, but
yeah,
I'm surviving.
Thank you for taking it off in the course of this interview. In fact, before we started, TM was telling us that you had done a concert many years ago before people wore masks. What was that about?
So it was a song. It was called the Porumboku Padal. Porumboku means commons in Tamil. It's actually an abuse word. It became an abuse word. So in any Tamil cinema, you'll hear somebody saying Poda Porumboku. Means you're useless, good for nothing. But it has a very serious connotation because if you say the commons are useless and good for nothing, it can be exploited. It comes from British time when the commons couldn't be taxed, right? And anything that's not taxed is not useful for the government. So then the people living on the commons are useless. Their lives are useless. Their cultures are useless. Their occupations are useless. So that's very deep meaning. And usually the commons belong to either tribal communities or marginalized communities. They live there. And this was about North Chennai, where we have four thermal power stations. Havoc to our river, to our entire fisher's life. So we made this song, which was both a critique of that, but also a critique of development and other things. And there is, before I go there, there's a very political phrase in that. In Tamil, in Chennai especially, if you say, "Enda vada sudriya," literally means, are you making vadas, but actually means, are you lying? So there's So a line in that says, if you tell the government, they'll say this is all development and cheat you. And so it's also political. And in that, the first shot of the song, which is taken on the ash ponds, I was wearing a mask. and I start singing in 2017, talking about the pollution, and I remove the mask. And it seemed weird then to do it. And now 9 years later, it seems weird that I'm not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And we've just normalized this entire state. I flew in yesterday and said, this is kind of ridiculous how we've just said, it's going to be like this.
So, in fact, I remember the Reader's Digest that I used to read regularly back in the 80s and 90s. There used to be this recurring ad that, is this what I remember the day 1992 will look like, with people cycling and jogging with masks on, because air pollution.
Correct.
Of course, it didn't happen in 92, but 20 years later it has happened.
Absolutely.
At that time, it was like this exaggerated reality.
Exactly.
But now it's
exactly.
the accurate
it's not
reality.
going to happen. It's going to happen. And the other thing is, you think it's going to happen somewhere. Some nook and corner, maybe few people. It will not affect me.
Yeah.
Kind
so it'll affect all of you. Which reminds me, here's a QR code. Join our Fight to Breathe campaign. We've been at this for over a year now, Manisha.
Yeah.
And we don't, stop covering this even during the summer months when the AQI is not so high, lest we be accused of only focusing at it for a month of the year. It's a year-long campaign. Check it out. There's a page dedicated to it. Now, with that, we would like to discuss two things that we have TM with us for another 45 minutes. Your book and the place of art, and especially coincidentally, just before you came yesterday, there was the Siruddin Shah incident.
Yes, I saw that.
And the Kala Ghoda cancellation.
Yes.
So the book first. I read a bit of your interview on the Indian Express where you make the distinction between the idea of India through Jan Gan Man and the idea of India through Vande Mataram. Now, before you do that, I'm just going to play a clip of a BJP spokesperson singing Vande Mataram on a prime time show when he was challenged.
Forcing a Muslim panelist to sing
Vande Mataram
and then failing at it himself.
And then the Muslim panelist told him to sing it. He came up with lyrics like Sumandar Bhusmani and all that.
Pulkistan. Pulkistan became a thing. That is a new nation they've created, Pulkistan.
So,
and this is the information minister of Pulkistan.
Bande Mataram Sujalam Supalam Malayaj Shitalam Sansayam Malayam Subrat Jyotisam Pulkityam Bande Mataram Pulkistan Sumita Dumal Sunamim Suhasin Sumandra Bhusmani Bande Mataram.
Yeah, just get into that, TM, about these two songs particularly, and what was your motivation of writing this book?
So the two songs, in fact, when I first thought of writing about the anthem, I was wondering, how do I begin that chapter? How do I address it? It was impossible for me to decouple Jana Gana Mana from Vande Mataram. It was very interesting. It had to be spoken about together because their histories are close, and it was very clear to me, I write there, I think, is that we're talking about two different notions. And unless you make the dialogue between the two, you won't be able to make relevance of where we are today or what we are doing today. So Vande Mataram as a song, I often say, is it really one song? It's like many parts put together. Okay. Historically, most historians agree that the first two verses were written between 1872 to 75. Not necessarily for Anand Math. Mm-hmm. But then when Anand Math was published in 1881, the other verses were added. First, as a song, those four verses just do not sit together. Let me just say it bluntly. They collapse as a song because there's certain things required for a song. Form, poetic cadence, a certain rhyme scheme, a certain continuity, a certain ability for it to come back to the kind of the first line. Everything is kind of very, 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 very patchy. Maybe that itself tells you something about the idea that it's propagating. And also, it's very clear Bankim is changed. The first verse is very normal. Sujalam is a very descriptive verse. Yes, Mother India is there, but it's just a docile kind of a thing. The second verse suddenly is talking about the population. Of course, he's talking about the population of Bengal, which is not the population of India, but nevertheless, Saptakoti, and suddenly there's some certain amount of ferociousness saying you need to resist, etc. Who's resisting? The people or the idea of Mother India? Well, we can debate. Then the third and fourth verses, it's a complete transformation. It is almost, suddenly you see the image of what we see today as Bharat Mata, that kind of a lion and this goddess. So there is a lot of jerkiness. There's a lot of jump. And therefore, it's a very difficult song in structure, which is why none of the people who tried to tune all the four verses together were actually able to do a great job of it. Anybody. I listened to about 20 versions. There are about 125 tunes to it or more. Those who tuned the first two verses were able to do it. So it doesn't fit together. The other thing, this whole thing that you have to connect with Anandamath, there's no way you can remove the song from Anandamath. Let's be very clear about it. If you read Anandamath, it is a text that is not just against the political Muslim ruler. It is anti-Muslim. It is Islamophobic. I mean, you have these Hindu sannyasins attacking villages, pillaging places, and this is an anthem. The song is like the anthem. It's like the initiation song during it. So it is deeply problematic. So to have a problem with that entire song as it is together is very legitimate in my opinion. The first verse, of course, I will keep aside. Now,
so is there also a hypothesis the first verse was written separately and the other?
So the first two verses. Okay. The hypothesis is there, and I think most people agree. Okay. The first two verses, we don't know whether Bankim even thought of the novel at that point of time, right? But then the fact is that the song did transform into something. Okay. So even Tagore, for example, says the accidental association with Anandamath. Because Tagore has a very emotional soft spot, especially the first verse. That's the only verse he has sung. Okay? That's, for me, unacceptable. Even Tagore's explanation. You can't remove it. If you remove it from Anandamath, then where is the song? I don't know. Right? Or you're going to just take the first few lines away. You can't do that. So it's a very, very problematic song. And if you look at history, it's very interesting that if you look at the Constituent Assembly, those who wanted Vande Mataram as the anthem, and this argument goes on, they are the same people who speak about cow slaughter. They're the same people who discuss about uniform civil code. They're the same people who also have discussed the one language issue. So Vande Mataram is not just a song. It symbolizes a majoritarian outlook towards this country that we were making then. And this we see even now. Very rarely will you see these issues decoupled. Or a person talking about one of them but not interested in the other.
Sure.
Jana Gana Mana is just the opposite. I call it a protest song. For simple reason, Tagore was irritated that anybody could have the gall to come and ask him to write a song in honor of King George because he was coming to India in 1911. This is his own words. He was pissed. And then you can imagine, so a very angry Tagore goes out and writes a song celebrating who he calls the Adhinayaka, which is, of course, not King George, as people like to constantly just talk. He's just this divine charioteer, the onlooker, whatever, the guide, whatever. And of course, that song is never sung anywhere where George was. Then he hands over the same song to the Congress session, the same December in 1911. And it's sung for the first time. So that song is entirely different. It's a geographical description. It's also a description of the state of the nation. And we forget some beautiful verses, which we don't sing in the anthem. The verse where he talks about this is a country of Hindu, Baudh, Sikh, Jain, the Parsis coming together as a country. It is a gorgeous description of this land.
And that would be completely opposite to the vision of India that the
Vande Mataram
Sangha ideology has.
Absolutely. Right? So you have to see them as very different ideas. And I'll add one more song to this list, which is the Hindustani version of Jana Gana Mana, not even version, interpretation, that Abid Hassan did for Bose in Singapore. Okay, so Bose is the first one who adopted Jana Gana Mana first when he was in Berlin. And then he realizes that it's too Sanskritized, it's too highbrow that way. And he says, let's make a Hindustani version. So it's written in Hindustani, which is very colloquial. And to me, that is another it's the common person's interpretation of Jana Gana Mana in terms of its words. Shubha Sukha Chain, that's how it starts. Beautiful. It's the same tune as Jana Gana Mana. But the language is different. The imagination is more everyday. It's more real. So that adds, I think these two songs together in a way represent India as we would like it to be.
Interesting. I'm just so piqued. My interest is piqued by how you have dissected this. But other than that, when was it adopted as a national anthem? In 47 or later?
Jana Gana Mana. The last day of the Constituent Assembly, 24th January 1950.
Okay, so
Is
it was
when finally it is
shortly before.
So actually, there's no big discussion about it. It was kept to the last moment. But the fact is also true that by then Jana Gana Mana had kind of default been used already. It had been played in, the armies was already playing it because they needed an anthem. There was an urgency in United Nations, for example, that they needed some anthem, and Jana Gana Mana was being used. And so by then it had slowly already.
Yeah, in fact, it was adopted as our school song in 1935, which is 12 years before independence.
Oh, that's fascinating.
15 years before.
That's fascinating.
So it was the school song.
The other person who really recognized its potential is Gandhi. 1922, when he publishes the Bhajanavali for his ashram, there are 3 songs he includes in it. That's the first time he publishes this book of songs. Jana Gana Mana, Vande Mataram, of course, and Sare Jahan Se Acha. All these 3 songs. In 1922, Gandhi has already put it in his book of bhajans.
So, I don't want to hog up all TM's time. So, Jayashree and Manisha, please go ahead regarding the symbols and the book, because in another 15 minutes, we can start discussing art in general and what its role in society and politics
So, just on Vande Mataram, it was back in news because Modi in Parliament said Nehru cut it. So, the cutting is what you're saying, the first 2 stanzas, which he felt that. But when he writes his letters, he is saying that the Muslims are creating a problem with this, and also in an accommodative spirit, we can get rid of the later few.
Yes.
But in your assessment, you think they realized that this was just a manufacturing of Jinnah, or they recognize that, okay, we want to kind of
I
bring
think
people...
if you look at the letters exchanged at that time, not just Nehru, everybody else. Nehru first was not very clear because he had not read Anandamat. So then first he says, I don't know why this problem is happening. Then he goes and reads Anandamat. After he reads Anandamat, his opinion changes. He actually says, now I understand why this can be irritating for Muslims.
So in a spirit of accommodation.
100%.
I mean, it seems like,
and also, listen, even at that time, there were 2-3 things going on. Just not Vande Mataram. There was also the question of national flag that was being raised by the Muslim League. What is the national? Is the Congress flag going to be the national flag? So I think it's accommodating. It's also, the spirit of saying we were trying to create a new nation. We wanted to be together. We wanted the fact that multiple communities can live together. And therefore, it is actually great understanding of the situation through which this decision was made. And if you see the decision, they also said, let's also look for other national songs. And we will consult Tagore, for example, and decide what are the other national songs. The other thing, this whole thing that one song represents the country, was not there for a long time. I want to put that in place. In Congress sessions, if you read the sessions across the country, they'll all say national song. Now, it need not mean one song. In Karnataka, it was a different song. In somewhere else, it was a different song. So the idea that only one song represented the entire landscape of India was not really. There were parallel ideas happening. There were parallel notions of nation happening. So this whole idea that Vande Mataram had to be truncated was not only, I think, a correct decision. I also think it's a correct decision because, yes, the 3rd and 4th verse are problematic. And the use of the song in Anandamat is an issue. So it's not just accommodative, it is also a realization that we need to bring this together and we need to recognize that we need to find a way where the song retains its presence. Why? Because it had a role to play during Bengal partition. At the same time, we need to keep the country together because they were, at that time, really moving fast towards the notion of complete independence.
So I do have a couple of questions. One is, which I think is a very obvious question, is that a lot of the symbols that you're writing about are sort of appropriated in various ways, right? Like they now stand for a very masculine, hyper-aggressive sort of nationalism. So it's very difficult to sort of de-link those ideas. But I guess that's something that you're trying to do in the book. So I was wondering if you could just explain why you picked the 5 sort of main symbols in the first place. And also, how do you think fundamentally you can get people to look at them in a way that was once very pure and very innocent and very standing of the country that we are in? And
so the greatest difficulty in writing this book is every morning something new happened. It's like, at one point, it is like, stop. Because every morning I get up.
As in the news?
Yeah, something they do to one symbol. Suddenly, next morning, get up, suddenly there's a new capital and there's a new parliament that is like aggro and looking at me and frowning at me. Those lions. Yeah. I'm like, guys, will you stop? Because I want to finish this damn book. So, that was actually a problem. So, see, the idea, I mean, you can ask, why did I write this book, right? And I think I struggling with the same issues that everybody else. The tonality of today's discourse, the aggression, the notion that being confident and being respectful or accommodative, like you said, is somehow a weakness. And that you have to be at everybody's face and telling everybody to basically four-letter off. Right? That's the way this nation should be, almost colonial in many ways. And that was really bothering me. And as an artist, I see it every day. Also, even more because things you're not allowed to sing. You cannot sing here. You can't do this. So I think that's how I went to these symbols. Now, also, music in many ways is a symbolic art form, like any other art form. It's an impression of an idea, and I allow you to pick what you want. So there is that emotional connection. But why these five? Because I think for me, these five, in a way, cover the entire landscape of what we have tried to give ourselves in the Constitution or in the basis of the ethics of coming together of such a diverse set of people. And I keep saying, it's actually miraculous in many ways that we are all together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's miraculous.
And I think one doesn't appreciate it enough because we take it for granted. In fact, I had one suggested in the Hafta that, I mean, until I read Ram Guha's India After Gandhi, the miracle that India stayed together as a political unit, because what was happening in the Northeast, what was happening in the South,
exactly.
With, people starving to death for, their own identity.
Yeah.
I mean, for all his flaws, and he had many, Nehru, I think the fact that he could keep India together is a true masterstroke, which I think was beyond any other leader at the time.
I completely agree. Exactly, we all will critique Nehru for many things. But I think the problem in today's discourse, first of all, bringing Nehru for everything is almost comical at some level. But I'm saying, I think Nehru or all of them, with different political backgrounds, different sociological ideas, their intentions, I think, were unquestionable. I think that's something we are not even talking about.
Yeah.
Today. You may do wrong, but what's my intention is what you're looking at, right? Whether it's Nehru, Gandhi, Ambedkar, Azad, name it, all of them, or Patel, or all of them. And they all wanted to build this kind of a crazy place. And say, can we keep this crazy place together in some manner? And of course, there was pull and push. So, imagine in between all that, you suddenly choose these kind of symbols that sometimes even seem so far-fetched. Like, why would you choose something like the Ashokan capital? I mean, at one level, I'm like, why? And then you realize that you are trying to pass on some kind of a value system in some manner. And also, they were reimagined. It was not like Ashoka's ideas were put into those capitals and dumped on your head or my head. No, they were reimagined the context. They were looking at partition. They were trying to not get caught in this Hindu-Muslim kind of a division. They realized caste is a major issue. So you have all these different reasons why you're choosing symbols. And we forget the power of symbols. Actually, the people who have made us realize the power of the symbols are the right wing. Because they realized the power of symbols even before we did. Because everything they do is symbolism. Because they culturally kind of beautifully bring it. It's a poison, which is there in your schools. It is there in an everyday. You go on the street and suddenly you start seeing things and then you normalize that thing after a while.
I mean, I think the RSS understood that really well.
Exactly.
Much, much before. Their brand positioning is something that they understood before all the ONMs and Piyush.
And which is why they call themselves a cultural organization.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's such a smart positioning. And I think that is why we need to bring back these symbols. We need to not allow them to be appropriated and allow for new imaginations of these symbols in a contemporary context. It's very essential we do that.
No, also the complexity of what our founding fathers were negotiating, whether it is writing textbooks. I mean, another example, it's not a song, but Subhadra Kumari Chauhan's Khoob Ladi Mardani Wo To Jhansi, that I studied that in school, but the paragraph from the Scindias was taken off because the Scindias refused to give her, a safe passage or support when she came with her infant tied to her. And of course, that man today is the BJP and a minister and arrogant as hell. But that was taken out. There was a certain heroism to her, but yet she only fought to protect her kingdom. And we call it the War for Independence, but everyone was fighting to protect themselves. Similarly, Mangal Pandey, heroic as he was, he protested when he was asked to bite a bullet with beef. He did not
Exactly.
do mutiny because he was asked to shoot at his own countrymen.
Exactly.
So, you see, it was so complex, and to negotiate that quagmire, to say, okay, they're heroes, they're imperfect heroes, so we will try to ignore this and highlight this. Was I don't think any country has had to negotiate this complexity in the national symbols, in the national heroes, in the icons, because you start really, investigating each of them and dissecting each of our heroes and national symbols. Oh my God, it is going to lead to, caste, community, linguistic.
Absolutely. And, and also, that's why it's very important for us to also push back on this civilizational history nonsense we hear today. The fact is, we have to keep on saying we are a modern country that came into being in 1947 and was a republic in 1950. It's important we keep saying this. Otherwise, we go into this whole thing of saying 2,000 years.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like you said, everything was little pockets here and there. Why then? Even now, I love to climb mountains. And I was in Nagaland for a week and I was somewhere. And I'm like thinking to myself, is there anything that connects me with the people here? There's zilch. There's nothing. There's no language, there's no clothes, there's no sensibility that I could say I associate with them. So what keeps both of us together? There's only one reason. The reason that we gave ourselves a constitution and that we all said that we will somehow find a way to cohabit this space. So this idea that we are a modern country is somehow taken to be almost a negative remark. We have to regain that and say, no, we are a modern work in progress country. And that's why these symbols become very important also, right? Otherwise, like you said, we can choose all these characters for various reasons, but they were all fighting for their own domains, their own identities, their own little things. And there were intra fights happening. So we just completely, want to forget all that. And then make this whole claim that for 2,000 years we are a continuum. We are not a continuum.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, and this thing of we're a modern nation, do you think like modern politics has failed the constitution in that sense? Because irrespective of what you may think of this thinking that we are not a civilizational whatever country, something as simple as Vande Mataram, the right wing's responses, and this happened during the partition also. We forget there was a bloody partition and people hated each other, and Hindus were genuinely very aggrieved by the fact that they got a country we didn't. There was that popular sentiment, and Gandhi, Nehru, all the, post-independent leaders had this conversation every day, explaining to people why it's important that we're going to be secular. And somewhere down the line, I think we've taken it for granted, because today, when it's common sense, when, you see this most common in TV debates, when someone says that, but why can't a country of Hindus allude to their country as Bharat Mata? Yeah. That's our...
It almost seems a very benign statement.
It's a very normal, and that's, what's the big deal? Like, if they can speak about Allah and country at the same time, why can't we? So, I feel like there's no political response to this anymore. Or that there's a lazy political response, so that we have to keep going back to maybe what Nehru wrote in his letters, which, frankly, most people today don't have the time to do or care to do.
And I think that going back there is also a sign of weakness, isn't it?
Yeah, because
there's nothing new. You don't have a discourse for yourself.
Like right? You said, RSS at least has constantly reinvented what they're trying to communicate.
No, I think we failed. Actually, I think, let's look at this. When we got independence, we were extremely impoverished. A feudal land, full of discrimination and casteism, everything, gender, name it, everything is happening.
And real communal hatred.
Yeah, communal hatred.
I mean, it was...
And then we imagined that somehow everybody will understand constitutional morality and democracy. We were not even a set of democratic people. We failed in actually passing on the idea of democracy, social democracy, cultural democracy to the citizens. I mean, why go then, even when we were in school, what did we really read about constitution or constitution making? One stupid civics textbook, which was like some few pages.
And preamble.
That's about it, right? So, but that as dry as it could get, and you just mugged it up to write it in examination. The fact is, we entirely failed in making democracy a culture. You have to feel democracy almost culturally. Like, you have to feel it. Like they feel, this idea of Vande Mataram in their stomach. The truth is that they do feel it. Let's accept it. Because that has been there from childhood. What have we done parallelly? We can say justice, fraternity, we can use all these words, equality, secularism. These are some highbrow words that most people don't know what you're talking about. But we have done nothing. It's all still in some court, Supreme Court justices saying something some point of time, or some academic. But beyond that, in everyday life, we have not done enough, which is the truth, I think, for a long, long time. And what is even crazier is even after the emergency, we didn't think there was an urgency to actually talk about these things among people in schools with students. I don't know how, that baffles me even more. At least the emergency should have been a moment of saying, this is very delicate. The balance can tilt at any moment. We still didn't. So actually, what we see today in many ways is also our failure. And I think it's important to begin from there. And like you said, if you want to reimagine, if you're asked a question today, if you don't have an answer from today and you only answer from 50, 60 years ago, it means that you have not engaged as a citizen or as a thinking person with those ideas with today in context. You have to do it.
Krishna, my question though would be, you're saying that when we got independence, though, we were a very impoverished feudal land, divided and so on and so forth. But are we not still even more impoverished? We are still very feudal in a lot of ways. We are even more divided. So I think the idea of the spirit of, you talk a lot about the spirit of the Constitution, which I find very romantic, but that entire ability to engage with it would only therefore come from elites, right? Because the poor are getting poorer, the marginalized have their own issues. So if there would be a movement or a push to sort of understand and engage with those sort of ideas, it would come from upper middle classes.
Which is not true, right? No, actually, in many ways, our present contemporary sense is changing that. Who is actually engaging with the Constitution today? It's the Dalit leaders. It's the Dalit communities. It is the people on the margins who are actually doing far more for the Constitution than the middle class and the elites. The opposite, actually, right? So you could ask, how is the common person talking about these very highbrow ideas? Because these ideas are not highbrow. That's what I want to say. You can't make it highbrow. We made it highbrow. We made this inaccessible. So when I say that at that point in time nothing was done, I mean nothing was done in public discourse, in public conversation. It's actually very simple things that you could actually do on an everyday basis. So we are in a situation where today you have Dalit leaders, you have the minority leaders, those are the people who are actually lifting the flag on many of these very essential values. Why? Because they have no choice. That's even worse. Because they have no choice but to push back using these very ethical values to say, boss, this can't happen. Whereas the middle class and the greatest failure in India, somebody asked me, there are these protests in other countries where the middle class join in. You do have a certain larger mass of people. It's not happening in India because class and caste is so intertwined in India.
And not just
that's why.
Hierarchy is completely embedded. It's etched into our heads, whether it's in families, whether it's
the most baffling thing about India is that everyone loves to believe that they're part of the middle class. You are not.
Yeah, exactly. When you see that. No, but just from a family level to villages to, so often you hear, badon se aise baat nahi karte.
Exactly, of course, I know Hindi.
Yeah, so, at every stage you're taught that there is a hierarchy, whether it's age-rated, caste, gender, family,
absolutely,
your social positioning. And I think that is so entrenched in us that it's very hard to kind of convince people of this modern India that we want to kind of speak about.
And which is why I think collective action is something that is very difficult in this country. So the notion of collective automatically in our brain is one of those formations you spoke about. Either it is close family formation, or it's a caste formation, or it's a gender formation, it is religious. So you can't think of a collective that in a way transcends these borders. And that is cultivated from childhood, right? From your home.
This is why I sometimes think Gandhi, for all his flaws, was quite a genius to have got everyone together to fight.
Absolutely.
I just think how did he manage this? And he did it with a series of accommodations.
Oh, yeah.
And people call it weakness now.
Yeah.
And also there's criticism that not just weakness, but also he was papering over a lot of issues. But it was also very canny politics.
So have you, ever worked in films in any capacity?
No, actually.
No, you haven't.
No, I've sung a song, of course.
But is it something that you like to stay away from?
No, nothing like that. Okay. Anything interesting, of course.
Okay. No, because, that is one place where hierarchies, the civil service is another, the two anecdotes I'm going to speak about determined that way back in the early 2000s. I used to run a production house. We were doing a show, and it was I think this is 2001 or 2002 with the ministry, and we had sent a proposal, and there was, I think, the joint secretary, me and my co-founder came. He looked at us like we are vermin. We stood around before he even acknowledged we had entered the room. He says, yeah, but there's nothing great about it. Your research sucks, whatever, everything else. So we kind of stood there, that I want to say, like, why have we been called if we are so terrible? And then he said, anyway, the chief secretary would like to see us. So we went and saw the chief secretary. It was a lady, I remember. And she saw the file. She says, this is brilliant. How long did it take you guys to put this project together? The guy who 2 minutes ago had been telling us how shit we... I was telling them this, madam. I mean, I was looking at the guy. I was like, fuck. So how quickly they can just move from whatever your superior says. Yes, sir. 3 bags full, sir. And the second is, when I was an assistant director in Bombay, there was a studio at that time. It was a new sound studio called Spectral Harmony that had come up. And I was there for the dubbing of a song that I was an AD to. So the waiting area of that had like about 30, 40 chairs. And there were 4 rooms inside. An AD's job at that time used to be a lot of waiting. So I was just sitting and reading a book, or I used to carry a book, because out of the 10, 12 hours you're working in a day, 4, 5 hours you're just waiting.
Got it.
So I was reading, suddenly everyone stood up, tadak, tak, 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 like military parade. So I looked up, Amitabh Bachchan had walked in to do his dubbing. So, on the one hand, you don't want to sit with 39 people standing, you're the 40, and you're like 24 at the time, like, who the fuck are you? So, you kind of awkwardly also stand up, like, and then once he passes by, then everybody sits down, then you also sit down. Then everyone get back. So then again, you also, peer pressure makes you stand. Because if you're just sitting, then someone turn around and say, you little shit. Why the fuck are you sitting?
Know, exactly.
So each time he'd walk through the corridor, everyone get up and sit down. And if you are not a star, you can miss your meal. You will, no minimum pay. Nothing matters. The light department used to get there 3 to 4 hours before anybody else and would pack up 3 to 4. That means effectively they'd get like 4 hours of sleep. And I always used to wonder, how come the lighting department, no one asked the lightman, like, what the fuck, you've just been working 20 hours straight. Yeah. But I think in the civil services and in Bollywood, I don't know how it is in the South, you see hierarchy will determine how you're treated in such a dramatic way. Nowhere else do you see it. It's so stark.
I hear that, from my friends in Tamil cinema, that it's there, but it's far better than what you see in Bollywood. It's far better. And I think that's true to some extent. It's far better, but it's still there.
Sure.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen it in studios. And there's another thing that'll determine you. So if I go, for example, to a recording, the moment I go in, whether the guy has ever heard me sing or whatever, he just knows his name. Everybody will get up. Everybody will get up. Okay? Now, say there's an artist, a Dalit artist, who's super. He's maybe even older than me. He enters the same studio. Nobody will get up. I've seen both happen. Exactly. Yeah. And it's just, and I'm not even saying anybody is wantonly like saying, oh, I will. No, it's just.
It's a conditioned reflex.
It's conditioned. You just do it.
You've just started doing it without thinking.
The same thing will happen to women too. The same thing will happen to women too. Identical. It's just like something from childhood, you just do it.
Yeah, I feel like everything is so comparative. I mean, like Kerala cinema and so on and so forth is way ahead of most of the states in a lot of ways. And I do think that in Kerala society also class differences aren't as stark in terms of how people treat each other. But then you throw in gender and then you throw in a whole bunch of other issues and it is as
and I think caste is also very, very strong Kerala. It's just like so complicatedly layered that nobody knows what's going on.
Exactly. And then at a glance, you think that this works better than it might work in, I don't know, pull out another state from a heartland or whatever. But fundamentally, there are always going to be those distinctions.
So we have 20 minutes because I know you have a book launch today straight from here. So you shouldn't be late like most stars.
Thank you.
So we have 20 minutes. Jayashree, would you just want to quickly tell us what happened to the Kala Ghoda and with the Nasiruddin Shah bit where we will play the clip and then we'll just get into the discussion of art as a form of social commentary or political commentary.
So at the Kala Ghoda Art Festival they were having, which took place in Bombay, So Anand Teltumde was scheduled to appear in a panel along with Naresh Fernandez and a writer called Neeta, I think her name is Neeta Kolhatkar.
Yeah.
So it was to be moderated by Naresh Fernandez. It was supposed to happen this week at 8 p.m. Then suddenly the night before, I think they received a bunch of messages from the organizers saying that it's been cancelled. You need to take down any social media posts that you might have put up over it. So apparently the police had granted permission for the festival, but had not screened individual guests at individual panels. So they saw the banner advertising Anand Tentumde's session. They got in touch with the organizers of the event. They said that we do not want this to take place. The organizers agreed, took down everything, didn't really put out a statement explaining why. And they sent an email saying that they've cancelled it on request of the police. So Neeta, who is on the panel, has written a very long, very, I think, important piece, which I will also put into my recommendations, where she just says this entire capitulation to say, yes, we can't hold this event is incredibly distressing. Also, there was a lot of social media trolling just ahead. So Neeta has alleged that it also probably stemmed from social media posts from right-wing veterans like Shefali Vaidya, who said that it is astonishing that Anand be allowed to speak when he is out on bail. So that is perhaps how the police got involved. So that was in Bombay. Then additionally, Nasiruddin Shah, I think he wrote an essay in the Indian Express where he said he was invited to a Mumbai University for an event without being informed why. It was organized by the Urdu department. He wasn't given a reason, but he was disinvited at the last minute. The university then told the audience that he had pulled out, which he said was blatantly untrue.
Yeah, exactly. That they gave the
So
wrong.
shameless.
So art as political or social commentary. I mean, you can tell us about music. You know, what, for example, the Mileswar Mera Tumhara was such a beautiful rendition. It was, I think, Rag Desh. Was it Rag Desh, right? Yeah. There was a need for it. Or that Ek Titli, Anek Titliyan, Ek Gilhari, Anek Gilhariyan, that cartoon, this thing.
I almost forgot that one, actually.
Yeah, that was so
I know.
annoyingly addictive.
I know.
But tell us when music has kind of told us what the world was at the time. Or the Guernica, I don't know how you pronounce it. My art connoisseurs, you guys, that Picasso.
Guernica. We allow it.
So that is, I think, a commentary on. It was a scene out of this bombing of the World War II.
Yeah, it's a town that was bombed, and it's from that. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so when you see that, and if you're art illiterate like me, then you have to read what it's about. Then you start identifying. Okay, that's what this is about. When does music do that? When does art do that? And do you feel, and this is something we've discussed in other podcasts, that over the last 7 or 8 years, and Jerry Shin, who's been laid off from Washington Post, had written those 2 investigative pieces in the Washington Post that OTT will only commission stuff that is ideologically compatible with the current. Like there is 100 years of RSS, a film being released. Every film that's been released of any significance, budget in the last few years has been consistent with the political ideology of the time. What's the role of art? Is protest an important part or an important trigger for an artist? And what has music's role been? And did you see that this is the clip of Nasiruddin Shah being harassed by this? I feel bad for this kid because this is what he's learning where he is, because he clearly doesn't have the agency of deciding what good or bad journalism is. But this is what he did.
What you meant, just clarification needed from you, sir.
I do not want to talk about this issue, so please don't harass me.
No, I'm not harassing you, just asking that. I'm trying to just ask you a question. What exactly you meant, when you stated that you were disinvited from the university?
I don't want to talk about it.
So why are you pushing the mic, sir?
Because you're shoving it into my face.
I'm not, I'm just asking.
I'm not answering you.
I'm just asking. What is there in that? Why are you getting angry, sir? I'm just...
Back off that. Because you're bothering me.
I'm not
bothering me.
I'm not...
Understand what that word? Will you take that away? Will you take that out of my face?
No, I'm just trying to ask a question.
Get it out of my face.
What's the problem in answering a simple question, sir?
Doesn't want to answer. Why can't you take a go for an answer?
What kind of people are you? What kind of a person are you? No. You can't see that I've just come in from a journey and I've said to you politely, I don't want to talk about this issue. Why are you persisting? Why are you harassing me?
Sir, I'm not harassing you.
You are harassing me.
I'm asking you a simple question.
So one, I'm not least surprised by these things because I have been also faced the same thing. My previous book launch was cancelled day before. because they said the book would cause social disharmony. It was a book about Dalit Mridangam makers. This was in 2020. I've had concerts cancelled in Delhi because of the same troll legendary army. So this doesn't surprise me. Now to the role of art. I think we romanticize the role of art a bit too much. Art by itself is nothing. It's the artist who's everything. So art is like art can transcend all borders. We hear all these things. It's ultimately got to do with what the artist wants to do. Art is a craft. It's a craft of being able to change something, create abstract imagery from something and evoke emotion. This is what it does at a very fundamental level. The mode can be tune, can be form, can be movement, can be color, can be anything. Now, it depends on what the artist wants to do out of it. Because the artist is in a way changing the way you think, rewiring your emotive spectrum at that point of time. So both can happen with art. It can be art that is manipulative and that wants you to be violent, that wants you to hate, that wants you to kill. It can be art that gives you further nuance and gives you different ways of looking at something, or maybe even reflect about yourself or protest. So, the fact, I think often we think art can just change the world. No, art can't change the world. So if you have a social environment, which is an environment of othering, fundamentally, then art is going to other because the people who are majoritarian, who have power at that point of time, are going to push. At the same time, if you look at history and art, the communities that have always made protest art or art that challenges norms are those who have been the margins across the globe. Whether it's the African American community, whether it's the Dalit community, whether it's the minority community, depending on the country, they are the ones because they have no other choice. You're not always going to listen to their voice. You don't give them space in mainstream. So they are the ones who are always actually making art that challenges the norm. Now, ideally, art is not something pretty. Art is not something beautiful. The whole notion that has to be something, painting that looks nice or has the right colors. No, art, in my opinion, has to take you out of your comfort zone. Has to, in fact, realign what you think is normal. Now, that is my ideal of art. So, it may not be something comfortable. It may not be something you find pleasurable. That's fine. But how often does that happen? So, it goes back to saying, what are we teaching our children? What are we teaching our society? If you're going to pass on what you see today, which is why we should be worried about the cinema that's being made. Because it's not just about today. If this is going to go on and on, say for a generation, and if this is what they're going to see constantly without enough pushback, then you're going to create an environment where this becomes the way art, this bravado, this chest beating, this 56-inch or 100-inch or I don't know how many inches, and making sure your neighbors are some evil demons who are just filled with people who are there. If this is what you're going to constantly do, this is what is going to happen, which is why we should be concerned. So we have to be very careful with art. You have to be very, very careful. It can do it like that, even before the individual knows it's happening. Color associations, just think of that. Now you've associated certain colors with certain political ideologies.
Yeah, and you've let them own it.
Exactly. Just think of that, right? The moment I see saffron today, my brain is wired to only think one way, right? Yeah. How has that happened? It's happened very systematically. It's happened over the last 20 years. And now it's almost game over for a color, imagine. Or, for example, if people see green, a specific green. From childhood, for example, I remember that green was not a color that the upper caste Brahmin community ever liked. They'll say, in Tamil, they'll say Muslim pachai, or it's the Muslim green. It's a tag.
Or even checks. Even now, there are certain temples in Tamil Nadu which says that the check lungi is not allowed inside.
I'm a person who's had many encounters with a lungi, by the way.
Because
lungi is Muslim.
The Muslims wear the check lungi.
By the way, any lungi. So I wore a lungi.
Any lungi is looked at as being not Brahmin.
Yes, for example, I wear lungis to concerts. So I have been trolled like hell for it because I wear a lungi. I've worn lungis to concerts. And saying, how can you wear a lungi? But what's the problem with lungi? It's the same piece of cloth. It's just tied all sides instead of a dhoti. That's all. Right. No, because it's Muslim. So look at all these things that we've done, right? So it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous game. And it'll just pass on, and it'll seem like little tea shop comments that are being said. No, they get established very fast. So,
in fact, what we started this discussion with, of the two symbols, they were art, the poetry.
Yes,
they're both poetry, and they both
absolutely.
are commentaries of different ideologies, different way of seeing the country. So, at the same time, different things may exist. Like you said, the majority will have their narrative push out. In fact, and that's a very lethal combination, art and politics. And Korea has done it very successfully, albeit not for within their borders, but there's this fantastic series of articles, and it's a economics podcast that has explained how the Korean government realized the power of pop culture. And the entire K-pop phenomena was not like suddenly everyone started. The government actively subsidized, pushed, supported K-pop outside, that if Thriller can be a phenomenon here, why can't our K-pop be? And they actually pushed that, and with great success. So it's a very lethal combination.
Absolutely. And the fact is that all art is political. There's no art that is not. This whole idea, art for art's sake, is just bunkum bullshit. There is no art for art's sake. All art is political. The more, especially in traditional art forms, you'll have people saying, no, I just learned this song. It's come for 200 years. I just sing. No, what you don't sing tells you why you don't sing it. Where do you sing? What about the place of concerts? Why do certain performances happen in certain locations? Certain performances only happen on the street. So every art form is political. Every song is political. So this acceptance, we often do this, especially the middle class and the upper middle class, especially the upper caste people will say, no, our art forms are all divine. It's all for somebody else. We are not associated with the everyday dirtiness of thing. It's like similar to what they say about politics, right? You'll hear this middle class political thing, we are not political people. We don't talk about the same thing. Right? So it's in fact that's even more dangerous, because you will be utterly political.
Yeah.
You will be,
and you claim not to be.
And you claim not to be political. That's even more dangerous, right? At least those who are political and telling you on your face, you can spot it, and you can counter it, and you can push through. This is even more dangerous, and this happens every day.
How difficult has it been for you to pursue your art form with all its commentary, all the context? You mentioned that there are a bunch of places where your book launch was cancelled, or your concerts you have problems facing, but you're still visible. We still see you. We still hear you sing. Is it because you're based in the South? You think that you still have a significant presence as opposed to here? Because I know when we were trying to screen Ravish Kumar's documentary, most auditoriums in Delhi refused to give us permission to screen it. So it's a serious problem. Is it that dire where you are?
So, I can't deny the fact that being in Tamil Nadu definitely is helpful, without doubt. It gives you a certain degree of shield from this. There are other issues that other artists will still find. If you, for example, push back on, say, the government in Tamil Nadu, I'm sure that problem will also set. So let's not make this all like totally hunky-dory. But the fact is, as far as especially the communal agenda is concerned, specifically, definitely Tamil Nadu is a place where you feel, okay, there are enough people who will cover your back. Definitely, that's one there. But other very honest answer is, it's my caste and class and gender location. That plays a huge role in me being able to survive. You can't deny that. And the visibility helps you. It's like there are pushbacks, there are moments where you're concerned, but it stops there, right? So it's a combination of my location, my physical location, and also my social location. This is what allows me to still kind of find my way, maneuver my way, go past all those months of craziness, and the cycle stops, and then you move on, and then another cycle begins. So that's how you play the game. But this is not true of, say, so many other artists I know who don't have this kind of a support system, who have sometimes given up and say, I don't want to do this anymore, or I want to take care of my family. And it's just mental. It's not just like somebody is going to hit you, right?
Sure.
It's just
fatigue.
mental. It's just fatigue. And I know it. Personally, I know how tiring it can be. It can be exhausting. It can be really exhausting. So, and the worst place to be, I've realized, is when you're going, especially States. I mean, I've had concerts cancelled in the States. I've had police being, I have had police actually having to surround an entire auditorium or a performance arena because there was threats of some protest.
Like what?
So because I am anti-Indian, I'm anti-Hindu, and I'm
like
urban
that.
naxal and whatever, So because of that, a temple in the US cancelled my concert because there were threats of a procession to come. Anti-TM Krishna protest or whatever nonsense.
Can you tell us which state in the US it was?
That was in Washington.
And
DC.
the group is what?
Some affiliates of the right wing. There are tons of them. I've had concerts accepted, and then I remember once what happened. I had a concert. I had a short tour, and I wrote this piece after the consecration in Ayodhya about the temple. The concert was cancelled on the basis of the piece I wrote. I think it was the Indian Express then. And they said, no, we can't have this guy because he's anti-Hindu. So stuff like this, right? And now in Toronto, I went to the concert and there were cops. It was a rotunda, the university, out of all people. And there were cops there. I said, what's going on? They said, no, there may be a protest, but if they come and shout, we'll have to stop and they'll let them shout and they go. I said, fine. Nobody came. But I'm saying this happened there too. And there, in fact, you feel even more vulnerable, actually. In some ways,
back home, at least you're sure
exactly
you have,
right. So you feel even more vulnerable. Here, at least, you feel that you can wangle something, right? So you can do. So, and there also a lot of the powerful voices are very homogeneous socially. If you look at who migrated, it is a middle upper caste kind of migration, and they still hold a large voice, whether it's the university system, whether it is the doctors in the US or those who have made their millions. It's the same group of people, right, from different parts of India. So it's a very, very different, and I think we are ignoring that a lot, because a lot of money, by the way, is coming from there.
And they leverage their minority status there also. So the white people also confused that, okay, the brown people are upset, what to do. And they don't know the caste.
It's complicated.
It's quite...
So, thank you, TM, for coming. Really appreciate you took out an hour for us. But before you go, we have a tradition of a Hafta guest gives us and our audience some recommendations that could enrich their lives. So since you're an artist, I'm hoping you'll suggest some good music that we should expose ourselves to. But don't feel pressured. If it's Punjabi pop, you can do that as well. If it's this book, that's fine as well. But just any recommendation or recommendations that you think would be valuable way to spend our time.
Well, I actually didn't come prepared thinking of any song specifically. Well, I think I would recommend a lot of the Tamil, Malayalam rap artists. There are many of them around. I think a lot of them have to be listened to. So my recommendation for everybody are the Wild Wild Women from Mumbai.
Okay,
they are a fabulous hip-hop rap group. And in fact, I curated a festival in Delhi and we had them. They make incredible music. They are Tamil, they're Marathi, they're in multiple languages, and very important music. And my recommendation will be the Wild Wild Women.
That's good. Something new that we've learned. But thank you so much for coming. Have a good book launch. We hope... See, today Delhi AQI is, I think, cleared up a bit in your honor.
So you can now just see and now tell me the number. You've got to that level of expertise.
Now we are pros. Right now we're at about 140, I think.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Right, now once again I'm going to plug I Built NL because it's her birthday. Here's another clip.
I'm Aban. I wake up to smell the copy. I built Newslaundry.
I'm Jayashree. I believe in the power of conversations. I built Newslaundry.
I am Manjul. Frankly, it took a whole village to build Newslaundry. But I like to think I'm the one who wandered in, hung a few satirical paintings, and became the interior decorator of dissent. I didn't lay the foundation, but I definitely helped decorate the place. I helped build Newslaundry.
I built 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 Newslaundry.
do send your clip of You Built Newslaundry to podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, here's a text, podcasts@newslaundry.com. And now before we get Colonel Ajai Shukla and Jayashree, how does our audience get a signed copy of this book?
Yes, so if you want a book that covers everything that Krishna talked about and a lot more, all you have to do is gift one joint NLTNM subscription to a friend, a family member, or somebody you hate. It's totally fine. We don't discriminate. Or buy one yourself if you don't have one yet, though I do hope you do. So yes, gift a subscription or buy one for yourself. Send us an email at podcasts@newslaundry.com. We will automatically enter you into a lucky draw where you could win a free copy of this book signed by TM Krishna with a special message inside from Abhinandan as well. So
great. Now
what a steal deal, do it.
Many people who are planning to go for that have just said, fuck it, I don't want this anymore.
No. You'll need to get the book to see what he said.
I promise you I will not spoil your book by signing it. It will only be TM Krishna's signature. But do, participate in this. And importantly, do send in your messages. We really want to hear what you have to say.
Yes.
We want to show the world it is not just the team that sits in our offices that built Newslaundry. All of you built Newslaundry, and I genuinely mean it.
It's a movement of which you're a part. So please tell us how you've been a part.
Yes. With that, we can move on to our next discussion as we are joined by our next guest, Colonel Ajai Shukla. Thank you, Ajai, for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
I'll just give your formal introduction. Colonel Ajai Shukla is a prominent Indian defense analyst. He's been a journalist. He's a former army officer. His expertise is in South Asian security, military technology, and defense economics. Colonel Shukla writes for The Diplomat. Previously, he has been part of Business Standard also as a writer in his past avatar. And you manage the blog Broadsword, which provides analysis of India's strategic affairs. The link to Broadsword is in the show notes below, so you can check that out. So, Ajay, I'm sure you know what's happening with the caravan article that Rahul Gandhi wanted to quote. Well, not the article, he wanted to read an excerpt from the book.
Which is in the article.
So, General Naravane's book has certain bits, apparently, which also now have been made into a little AI-related animation, which I saw of what was happening on the phone call. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Which he was stopped from reading. Under some rule, this book has been with the Ministry of Defense for 2 years now. One, what are the new rules, Ajay, that if someone from the army, or I think from any government employees writes a book or even an article, does that apply to you as well as a writer of columns? What is the rule?
To sort of put it very succinctly, all people who are in sensitive government positions, and that includes being a part of the military, are required to sign the Official Secrets Act, and they are then for the rest of their lives bound by the Official Secrets Act in accordance with the decree, with the sort of document that they signed at the time of joining. This is renewed, the signature, every year. And it is assumed that there is also a degree of common sense and good judgment that goes in to the handling of sensitive information. So that is the position. General Naravane, when he wrote the book and sort of sent it for publishing or for clearance, it was assumed and will continue to be assumed that he is aware of being bound by the Official Secrets Act and will act in accordance with that.
So he was Chief of Staff from December 21 to April 22.
From 2019, I think, to 2022.
As he was Chairman of the Chief of Staff Committee from 21-22, yes, I stand corrected. He was Chief of Army Staff from 2019 to 22. Because I think that position was created a little later, the earlier one. And he was Vice Chief of Staff from 2019, September. Now, when you say if you've held a sensitive position, you are bound by that act, is sensitive defined? Does that apply to every army officer? Does that also apply to some of these, former, I mean, I don't even know if they're former officers or not, who sit on prime time, saying some rather bizarre things. Can they pick and choose who it applies to? Can the government pick and choose?
Oh, yeah, bizarre is good provided it does not offend the government. It is sort of assumed, to answer your question directly, that when I sit on your show just now, as I'm doing, I will be aware of being bound by the Official Secrets Act, and I will be able to divulge some things that I say. I will be able to be in line with with the Official Secrets Act, but there are some things that I will not go into as a consequence of my subjection to the Act.
But why does that logic not extend to books?
The logic extends to books as well.
So then,
General Naravane would have had to get this book cleared. And the reason why we are sitting and having this discussion is because the military did not clear the book.
No, what I'm saying is, why doesn't it extend to books? As in, you don't have to get cleared, or anyone doesn't have to get cleared. This is what I'm going to say on this show. The assumption is that you will abide by that act. Why can't the same not apply to a book? That the assumption is that the written word has a different rule from the spoken word?
No, Abhinandan, let me make it very clear. A book that is written by any person of the armed forces, in which there is the possibility of any kind of secret or confidential information being divulged, has to get clearance before he writes the book. If I am to write a book tomorrow, I will have to get it cleared from the military. Unless the military is very sure that and there are such people who enjoy the confidence of the military, who will always get their books cleared. But in the case of a serving chief or a retired chief, the parameters that will apply will naturally be more stringent and more rigid, because this will then have come from the source of a serving army chief, and therefore is sort of bound by much more strict rules.
I see. So what happened in Parliament yesterday, Manisha, and what did it lead to?
So, in fact, I'm really curious to know from Ajay what his various army WhatsApp groups that he's part of, how are they buzzing? Because, okay, the central thing is that what the controversy is around, that the army chief was faced with the situation that China was coming with its tanks. He wanted a very clear direction from the PMO, which came a little late, which said that do whatever you want. And I'm keen to, jo uchit samjha wo kariye. So the allegation of the opposition is that you left the army without, any support, any clear instructions, and you threw a hot potato situation on them. So I want to know from Ajay, one, again, like I said, like a lot of people in the army, veterans, would be discussing what they would do if they were in the army chief's situation. And I have two questions on that. One, like, for something like this, a situation like this, do you really need the Prime Minister's approval? Because you're not going into enemy territory. You're not doing an Operation Sindoor. You're defending yourself. Tanks are coming at you. You defend yourself. What is the protocol? Because there would be commanders, on the field there to take that decision that, okay, we have to defend ourselves. So this accusation of the opposition that the PMO had to say something, how operationally, if you could evaluate it, and for the Prime Minister to say, do what you think is right, is it really that bad? Because that's basic. It doesn't mean that they're going to blame the army the next day if something goes wrong. But it says that, okay, you're on the field, you're the right person to take decisions there. We'll go with what you decide.
Well, it's like this. For people who are there on the front lines, on the ground, at the cutting edge of the country's defense, you have to perforce leave certain things to the application of good old common sense. If tanks are coming at you from the enemy, or for that matter, any other kind of offensive action is being taken by the enemy against your troops on the front line, you will, as a senior commander, I'm sure, especially when it comes to the question of dealing with China, you will want clear directions from the government before you set off a war with China. So to that extent, the army chief, General Naravane, after having been informed by his commanders up the line that this is what is happening, there are Chinese tanks advancing, will naturally approach the government. But at the same time, the people on the ground who are facing the brunt of what is happening are not expected to just sit there and wait for orders. There is going to be a clear understanding amongst if I'm a commander on the ground, whether a battalion commander or a brigade commander or higher, I am going to be clear that my troops are not going to sit there and allow Chinese tanks to run over them. They will take action. And while the government is taking its decision and sort of arriving at a clear set of directions for its soldiers on the ground, the soldiers on the ground will also be fighting back at that stage and dealing with whatever threat is being created.
If you could comment on the political controversy around it, which is the Prime Minister saying, "Jo uchit samjha wo karo." Do you think it's that?
Is it a controversial?
Strange.
Is it a controversial instruction?
This is an instruction that reeks of abdication of responsibility. The government cannot give directions in a manner as cavalier as "Jo tum theek samjho wo kar lo." You're not going to set off a war, a shooting war, with the second biggest power in the world, just on the basis of what the army chief might feel like doing that at that moment or not. So I think that while General Naravane cannot take shelter behind the sort of instruction that the chief said or the government said, "Jo tum theek samjho wo karo." At the same time, the government cannot hide behind the blanket sanction that we give him a free hand. You don't give free hands. Governments in democracies exercise tight control over their militaries, both in the matter of peacetime activities as well as what they are required to do in war. Wars are fought in tightly circumscribed environments where the military is not allowed to go beyond a remit, and consequently the government is not allowed to, or is not one that would allow itself to be sort of bulldozed into a certain line of action which may not be to the national interest of all.
And there's always a level of escalation that scenario A, do this, scenario B, do this, scenario C, do. I mean, that entire, there is a prescribed level of escalation which is a political decision.
And I'm guessing you go with option A, B, C, then the government says, okay,
exactly.
no B, no C.
I think that kind of complexity of thinking, I don't know if the top man in our government has.
Certainly flies in the face of claims that it is Modi's chappan and chhati that scared China away. Like, the central thing is that there's a lot of PR around you tackling China.
Yeah, not just that. Like Ajay said, I just find bizarre that such an instruction is what is given, and something that could have enormous implications, especially considering our history with China. But Jayashree,
this is the biggest and most consequential decision that any government anywhere takes, whether to take its country into war or not. And to suggest for even a moment that a government can leave entirely to the uchit conclusion of a government is sort of completely bizarre. I have not read the book. I have to start by telling you that. But I can tell you this, that any chief who approaches his government and says, we are going to war with China because there are Chinese tanks rolling up to our defenses, and the government says, "Jo aap theek samjho wo kar lo," it is what I would call an abdication of responsibility.
Right. So, Jayashree, you want to come in on there before we fire next few questions to Ajay?
Yeah, I'll just briefly talk about what happened in Parliament, because that's the thing that I saw play out. So the context was that I think Jayashree Surya said something about the Congress not being a patriotic party or questioning the patriotism, whatever. So during that motion of thanks, Rahul Gandhi said, well, I wasn't going to bring this up, but now I will. And then he tried to read out the article. He read out, I think, one sentence, and then everybody started screaming and heckling. And then one woman, like, jumped to her feet and she raced out of the Lok Sabha and protest. It was just unreal sort of scenarios. And so they're saying that he's broken some rules of code of conduct, but that is a very debatable sort of point. But I think for me, just the idea that in what world can you say that Parliament is not allowed to debate what is published in a newspaper or a news magazine? I mean, before it was discussed, the radio tapes were discussed, and you can't just pick and choose and say, now you can't discuss this. The only grounds, I guess, to not permit it would be if he or Caravan said the quoted text was incorrect, but they didn't. And you can't disallow a person from speaking altogether, surely. And I just think, and this is, I'm very pleased with this phrase I have coined, which is, I think this government is like a vampire of democracy. This instinct for secrecy above all else is so strong. As Manisha said, yes, this story paints the government in a poor light, but at the end of the day, this instinct for secrecy is too strong. Like sunlight is supposed to be the best disinfectant. You're supposed to let things be open. You're supposed to let things be transparent, allow them to come into the light. But here we're doing exactly the opposite. We don't know whether a jet was shot down or not shot down. We're still debating on it. Donald Trump has said 90 times that he intervened, but the Indian government has said, no, he hasn't intervened. I think also the support base runs on the fantasy that runs on a fantasy that is constantly being constructed and reinforced, and that fantasy is being fed and supported at every turn, to the extent where the amount of knowledge that we, the public, have on things that have publicly taken place is so far below minimum that I think it's surprising. I think the PSLV failed. The report was filed with the PMO. It was never made public. But why? These are basic things that are done as a matter of course. If a scientific mission goes wrong, publicizing the reason is a healthy, transparent thing to do in a democracy. So I think here the fact that Rahul Gandhi was reading out of this memoir that is yet unpublished, and yes, that falls under the remit of being extremely sort of sensitive information, and yet, even if it had been very trivial, I still feel like we see the same sort of reaction because we, the public, just are not supposed to know things that happen. So, yeah.
Manisha?
No, and I think the one way where and Ajay has kind of touched on it, but how they've defended all of this is that what else could you ask for but a government that gives the army a free hand? This is the dream. They're not constrained like earlier they were. Now they can just... So, and they've spun it around to say that we are, we're supporting them in such a big way that previous governments didn't. But I think, certainly, even if the book is not in publishing, the fact that Rahul Gandhi was not allowed to read an article is ridiculous, and none of the justifications add up. None of them. Yeah. Because the next day, Nishikant Dubey went on to say such crap. Nehru's affairs. He
brought his own
Indira
books,
Gandhi's
right?
affairs. Like, suddenly you're talking about very personal lives. But here, this is a national security issue. It's a political issue that suddenly you can't talk about it because it's not allowed.
And the speaker saying that the Prime Minister will not attend because he has credible information that there would be some attack on him in Parliament.
The Caravan story very clearly does indicate that at no point does the former army chief criticize Narendra Modi. His memoir, they said on the contrary, they said his memoir is full of praise, often for very minor gestures. So, but we are just not allowed to read it.
Now,
I would inject a note of caution here. I would say that there are certain issues that are secret in matters relating to defense, and there are certain things that can be and must be debated because they are in the national interest. So, in between these two circumscribing factors, there is a very large battleground that that should be debated and should be used for the government and the opposition to both decide, argue, debate, and do it publicly in order to arrive at the best way of conducting your national defense. I think that first of all, the army chiefs, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully over here, over the years have trivialized this subject. It began with General Padmanabhan in 2004, who wrote a book called Writing on the Wall, India, something in which India teaches America a lesson and so on. It went on to Naravane writing another book called Cantonment Conspiracies in 2025. There was General V.K. Singh, who wrote a book basically praising himself because there are not many who would do that job for him. There is also one very, very good book that was written, which is an example of how you can sort of deal with all these factors in one book. That is the book on Kargil, which was written by General V.P. Malik. So the fact of the matter is that you can't have chiefs occupying positions of real gravitas and writing detective novels called Cantonment Conspiracies. It sort of doesn't gel together. So I would say that the sort of chief who accepts an order from the government, like "Jo tum uchit samjho wo kar lo," is there is certainly a large lapse in both the conduct of the government as well as what the chief is willing to accept.
So with that, thanks so much, Ajay, for joining us. Can you give us a recommendation that could enrich the lives of our listeners or viewers? Something you've read, watched, or heard that is worth their time?
I've already given the punchline away. I would recommend everybody reads this book, Kargil, From Surprise to Victory, written by one of our most sober and well-spoken and well-judged army chiefs that we've had in recent times, General V.P. Malik. It deals with a lot of the stuff that we're talking about in this show, which is the relationship between the government and the military, and the sort of the relation, the way that this navigates difficult problems like civil-military relations. I would say give General Malik's book a read. You'll enjoy it as well.
Thank you so much, Ajay. Always a pleasure having you. Have a good weekend.
Always a pleasure being here.
Bye-bye. Okay, so with that, should we get into the emails? We only entertain the critique, criticism, feedback, and suggestions of subscribers. So you can mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com. You can please write Hafta in the title, or you can click on the link in the show notes below. A little form will pop up. You can give your feedback there. Please keep it below 150 words so we can include as many of your feedback as possible. Right, this week's emails have been curated by Jayashree. So Jayashree, please do the honors.
Yes. So the first email is from S, who says, regarding the previous Hafta, I agree with Anand on the format of I agree interviews. It can only further the fragments of our society into fissures, as I've seen in the US from my lived experience. The anti-intellectual sentiment will only grow stronger. Frankly, I was quite shocked to learn that guests are not informed about the format's satirical undertone. So the reference is that Anand said he feels I agree can be a little cruel.
Because it's in bad faith. He feels.
That's one. And number two, S says, on Newslaundry's editorial and regional biases, I feel as a whole stories from Eastern and Northeastern India are neglected. They only appear if something ghastly happens or if central BJP people are involved. Speaking as someone hailing from West Bengal. Keep up the great work. I love the stories from TNM and NL equally.
I agree with the second point. The first point I'm a little
Second point I
confused
agree,
about. I'm not sure, but does it feel like a bheja fry sometimes? Like you call somebody and then they don't know that they're being made fun of, but they're being made fun of. Like, is it cruel?
Well, I personally think it can be cruel. It depends on the power dynamic. I mean, for example, if I were younger, I'd do it to a lot more people. When you're older, it's sometimes not unequal. But no, I don't think it's cruel. I think it is a legitimate way of taking something to the extreme. For example, and this is actually what Ali G used to use. Like the whole idea for I agree came after a long discussion when I was had with Sabrina, who's been on this show. And we used to love watching Ali G, and she dissected. She says what he does is he takes a position with like it's a white supremacist or someone who's anti-LGBTQ or anti-trans. And he'll take it so far that either that person has to completely withdraw from their established position, or they will agree with you and go that far where you actually can show that person up for what they are. For example, he was interviewing this guy who does the fashion shows for this major, brand. I think it was another Armani type, the top brand. And how a lot of the fashion shows that they do. So Ali G had 3 avatars. One was Ali G, who was this white wannabe black rapper. One was Bruno, who was this gay fashion designer, Austrian, I think. And the third avatar was who? I forget. Oh, the Kazakh reporter, Borat. So Bruno is interviewing this choreographer for this fashion show, where they are doing a fashion show with people, with models with disabilities, whether they're deaf, etc. And that is this whole thing. And he wants to show up for that. It's such bullshit. You are just making super rich people feel good about something that's just crap. So he's interviewing this guy, and this guy's really sweet, and in his Armani suit type. Yeah, so we're doing this. Oh, that is so beautiful. So the deaf ones, they can't hear cue. So you push them onto stage, how it work? He says, yeah, you just gotta nudge them. Yeah, you use prod or you just use hand. Now, that guy doesn't realize how fucking stupid it looks. Is it cruel? Yes, it is. But that is a great way of showing them up for what they are. So I personally would do it even more. In fact, when Madhu, some of the things that I had ideas for, Madhu said, dude, the audience here does not have that sense of humor. I think there are certain people who do, but the kind of people who like it, you'd notice, are the ones who have a sense of humor and have a sense of irony. So no, if it were entirely up to me, if it was a Newslaundry, if it was just Abhinandan's YouTube channel, I'd fucking roast people, even if they were like 15, 20 years younger than me, like that Allahabadiya guy. I'd confront him as someone else. But no, I wouldn't do it on Newslaundry. But I don't think it's cruel at all. I wouldn't do that to a rational person, but someone who has a position that is bizarre.
And I think the power thing is what matters, right? You're not punching down at somebody who has no clout, who has no standing. They have their own right, who have their own platforms. So they're not suffering artists. Srinath says, another subscriber's question about what you cover versus what you don't on Hafta made me wonder if you'll be willing to pull back the curtain on how you make your editorial choices. How does NL make judgment calls about what's in public interest? On a lighter note, I think Manisha recommended Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan's Disse Koli Yardi as an outro song on Hafta a few weeks ago. I want to suggest a more recent version from Coke Studio, Pakistan. If you haven't heard it yet, it's a great listen.
I've heard it.
The following might be apocryphal, but I heard somewhere that this was the first instance of an Indian artist, Shilpa Rao, being part of a Coke Studio Pakistan project. Enjoy.
Although Coke Studio Pakistan, at least on Apple iTunes, on Apple Music, is blocked.
Really?
Didn't it also get blocked on Spotify or something?
How crazy. Yeah, I've heard both. I've heard Paris and Nade. I quite like it.
Right, so how do we make judgment calls for Hafta?
On Hafta, if it's kind of topical, we can have an interesting discussion. Like today, TM was in town. So while Jan Gan Man and Vande Mataram aren't the issues of the week, it is an issue, it's interesting. So we'll take that decision. The bit about what happened in Parliament and the book of the former army chief, that was very current. So it's a combination of many things. But importantly, for Hafta, it has to have an element where a discussion would be interesting. It cannot be something that is just a piece of news and that's that.
I think a lot of our news discussions are shaped by also whether we can get a good guest who can sort of contribute to it, because we don't want it to be just us sort of trying to come up with opinions on it.
And the logic in what report is covered is completely different. The logic of Hafta selection and a report, what is public interest journalism, the two are not the same.
Right. Amar says, dear panel, this is with regards to your discussion on the UGC equity rules. My observations. 1. Government is good with coming up with names that sound great, at least to their vote banks. Equity is one such label. Sudipto and others were correct in their analysis that the rules don't amount to much. Also following Sudipto, I'm enjoying the Savarna sense of victimhood against their own beloved government. You can imagine my amusement at the turn of events, especially after finishing Ravi Kant's book Meet the Savarnas and Manu Joseph's Why the Poor Don't Kill Us. Number 2, as far as the anti-ragging rules go, Anand's right. All students are required to do is fill up an online undertaking. But they do it without going through the rules of the UGC or the Supreme Court's guidelines. I try hard to explain the rules and punitive measures to all students, but clearly they aren't interested in understanding. The institution is small, students are in close contact with teachers, so we haven't seen the menace of ragging, but I still find it tough to understand that students don't even spend 10 minutes to read the rules, which is there in most languages. There's also a provision for an anti-ragging squad. I guess no one has ever conducted surprise visits in different parts of campus, including hostels. Also, no principal or vice chancellor has ever been removed for a ragging incident.
I don't blame the students for not reading anti-ragging rules because there is a militant fear of notices that at least I went through when I was in college. Like anything that came in the form of a notice, you just ran away from it. So,
Also, it's not like a student is going to read it and say, yes, now I won't do ragging. Like,
you find better ways of talking to students. Yeah. In fact, it just came to me that so many people have been talking about Manu Joseph's Why the Poor Don't Kill Us. I really want to read it. Suddenly, like everyone's talking about how great the book is.
I said so long ago that you didn't believe that.
No, I did believe you then also. But
did you not watch the interview?
Maybe for our media rumble, Ravikant and Manu Joseph should be in conversation. Both these books get talked about so much. Meet the Savarnas and Why the...
Fantastic
They're very
idea.
good...
yes, please, Jayashree.
Talk with
our
Manu,
curator of
Ravikant.
The Media Rumble. Yeah. This is a fantastic idea.
And you can host it. It'll be fun.
Then it'll be a man.
I will not host it.
That's okay.
That's okay. Okay. But
as a woman, I allow.
Thank you so much. Also, what I wanted to challenge you on is I finally watched Dhurandhar. And you had nice things to say about that film.
I didn't have nice things to say. I think it's not as terrible as what it's being made out to be. But I'll tell you one thing. So I watched it again on Netflix. Because my mother-in-law was in town and she wanted to see it. So she hated it because of the gore and everything. But I watched it again with her. It's actually really bad on Netflix. Somehow, I don't know what it is. Is it the sound or is it what? But it was way more watchable in a theatre than on Netflix.
That's true for any film.
Maybe it's just a really bad movie.
No, but I could notice how bad Akshay Khanna was on Netflix. Like, when I watched it on Netflix, I was like, why were people praising Akshay Khanna? And even I thought Akshay Khanna was so good.
Yeah, overacting of that.
But somehow theatre, some technical thing to it.
No, I think anyway, I just thought that, But
you like Bedi, the Pakistani politician? He was nice.
I just held my head on so many instances. I was like, fuck, I cannot believe people. And again, I don't always watch every film with my politics there. Maybe I'm getting old and I do and I don't realize it. I can enjoy a film irrespective of, like, for example, I think Sanjay Leela Bhansali's films are fucking shit films, but I enjoy them because of the spectacle. I think there's so many films that are shit films, but I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's a shit film, but I enjoyed the film. There's a shit film, but I didn't even enjoy it. Other than the song, which was...
The songs were great.
Yeah, those are...
But also, my level of comparing it was also Animal. Because the same sort of hype came for Animal. Animal, I couldn't watch for 5 minutes. It was so bad. Here, I felt like at least the music, the dialogues... I'm a Ranveer Singh fan also, so that worked.
Oh, God.
Okay, we will... Rajshri and me will be discussing Dhurandhar at length in the next episode of Awful and Awesome, and hopefully Manish will join us.
Manish will join us.
Manisha will join us, and there will be combat as to why did she enjoy it and why did I hate it.
Poor Manish. Next email is from Drishti. Hi, I'm a regular subscriber. I listen to Anil Hafta while working. On the new UGC law, I think the mentality where the general category has a lower uprising, not all people, just some, and also some ST, SC, OBC people have a victim mindset. As for history also, Sudeep, though, that to torture other people, which happened in history, in a country like India where women are worshipped, but in reality, that is not what happens. So maybe you don't agree with this, but of course, we're not the same. In the end, please continue your work like this. I feel like I've read this out incorrectly, but I can't actually figure out what she's saying. Okay. The next email is from Anish, who says this is a rant regarding the app's podcast player. He says it's gotten worse. It doesn't play. It gets stuck on loading. I've tried switching between shows. It doesn't help. It's getting to a point where I feel like giving up. Can you please look into it? Okay. I also tried to upgrade the subscription so I can get RSS feeds, but I couldn't find an option. We will email you, Anish. Sorry about this.
But we fixed that issue, right? Jayashree,
I think this might be a slightly older email, so I'll just check.
Just check when this email, because Anish, we've updated those bug fixes on the podcast player, but we will definitely check this out. Our tech team will.
Also, if you can't find the RSS feed, to you. So he also says, otherwise keep up the good work. I love listening to Abhinandan's and Jayashree's optimistic views on everything. Do not want to miss those. We are very optimistic. It's true. Digital Prisoner has sent us an email. This is the last one, saying, "Hi, I want to share my experience with digital safety. I regularly listen to Abhinandan and Hafta, my elder brother, who inspires me with his bravado attitude. Once, when I received a scam call, I confronted the scammer with VCMC. What happened next was terrifying. While driving home from work, my phone started beeping nonstop. I kept receiving OTPs from various websites, and the SMS messages wouldn't stop. I turned off notifications. The OTP calls then began flooding my phone. I had no choice but to put my phone on airplane mode, and this harassment lasted for 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
Complaining to the service provider didn't help. I had to spend 2 days without a phone. After researching, I learned I was a victim of SMS bombing. This experience made me realize how vulnerable we all are digitally. I want to share my story. Ignoring scammers is safer than confronting them."
Wow. No.
Basically, he's saying he swore at the scammer because he was inspired by Abhinandan, and then he got fucked for it. So
Don't get inspired by Abhinandan.
yeah.
But no, so many people have this story of scammers that actually, like, once you confront them, it really descends into very, like, scary terrain. A lot of them get back at you with, like, the choices of abuses, and if you're a woman, you get taken aback. I remember Nidhi Suresh during the height of COVID.
Yeah.
Somebody
That
scammed her
oxygen.
and it was very terrifying how that guy kind of just launched at her after she called him out. So it can be very, because I think these guys are like, they're professional criminals in that sense. So they're very, like, it can be scary. So yeah, maybe ignore them if you can't take the...
So, I mean, like I said, it's not a mathematical theorem that there's one answer. You have to play it by ear. These are all judgment calls and there'll be different people. But I have...
Poor guy took your advice.
I would still say, if someone asked me, for example, I interviewed Ankur Wareku earlier this week. We'll play a little clip at the end of this. And I discussed with him. I said, you tell your students that everything is good, everything is nice, ignore the negativity. I was like, that's bullshit. You got to be a shark. You can't be gentle if you want to succeed. You got to be fucking aggressive like a mad dog. Otherwise, you're going to get... And I think Ankur's answer was really good. He said, look, you do you, yeah. For you, that may work. If you try the gentle approach, it won't work for you. If I try your approach, it won't work for me. So I think that was actually really a smart answer that Ankur gave. And I was quite impressed with him, actually, to be honest. Although I disagreed with him on a bunch of stuff. It's important to have that positive kind of, stay positive, smile. I mean, like you said, you're physically a very attractive man. You have a great smile, which you use to great effect in your videos. But, I mean, God forbid, if I were to conduct courses, no one would even attend them. But if I were to train kids, I'd say, dude, you got to have the aggression of a wild dog.
Yeah.
You got to have the aggression of a shark. If you're not a shark, you're fucked.
I think that people succeed when they are true to themselves. And whenever they're trying to put up a facade, they will almost inevitably falter. What you're saying is who you are or have always been. What you see of me is who I have been and I've always been. You will never see me in a different avatar. I found myself saying, show up every day and be that hustler who will win every single fucking second. And don't ever give up. Don't you dare sleep without knowing that you've won the day. I will feel like a fake because that's not who I am. I sleep at 9:30 every day.
Even I'm an early sleeper. But I think if someone is trying to fuck you over, you should not be apologetic in figuratively kicking them in the nuts. So that'll come with some inconveniences, but an inconvenience is okay. We live with a lot of inconveniences. Look at us in Delhi. We play football in 500 AQI. Is it lovely? No. Our throats are fucked through the year. But do we enjoy it? Yes. So wait through the inconveniences. It is still always nice to knock out someone who's trying to fuck you over. It is.
This again going from bad to worse. First it was like swear at them, then he's like, yeah, kick them in the nuts.
I'm just saying,
knock them out.
I'm just saying,
knock out anyone who's
figure of speech. It's not literal. It's a figure of speech. You guys are just making it literal. Right.
With your car
next email will be like, I am now in jail. I took Abhinandan's advice.
I took Abhinandan's advice and kicked him.
I'm writing this mail from a jail.
But yeah, so thank you so much. Do continue to write to us. But more importantly, send us on podcast@newslaundry.com. I built NL. Do it in your style. Do it in the gentle style if you're the gentle type. Do it in non-gentle style if you're not gentle type. You do you. So recommendations for the week. Let's start with Jayashree.
Yeah, I have. Okay, so 2 recommendations. One is I'm recommending Basant's documentary on Ayurveda. I found it fascinating. I think it's also a really good thing to show people, because we all have that one family member who is really into Ayurveda and will say, no, nothing, it's super safe. I'll just take it. Oh, I'm dying, but it's fine. Like, I'm just going to take these random things, put them in my body, and then hope for the best. So I think you want to do it, go ahead. Like, it's totally fine. But it's also good to know what it is and what your industry is either doing or not doing to regulate it. So watch it. It's about an hour and a bit, but it will go really fast because it's just quite fascinating.
And it's got Ravish's VO for Ravish fans.
Yeah, it's got Ravish's VO.
And second is a long story in Activist magazine. So when I was growing up, I was very taken by the story of Captain Robert Scott. He was that tragic hero who wanted to be the first man to go to Antarctica. He made some shockingly bad but very British decisions, like carrying a lot of china so he could eat on lovely plates while going. Anyway, he made it to Antarctica, only to the South Pole, only to realize Roald Amundsen had beat him to it. He and his party then turned back and they died. So I remember reading I remember reading his diary growing up, and I was just very fascinated by it. And that's maybe why I got very into reading about polar nonfiction. So this is a very, very long, superb story about an unknown romance between 2 members of Scott's party who did survive. 2 men, 2 very British men, very tragic in their own lives once they went back home. But it's just a very moving, fascinating story. So read it over the weekend when you have some time. It's called From Antarctica with Love.
Thank you. That's an interesting recommendation, Manisha.
So I have 2 recommendations from Newslaundry, and this made me think of what you were saying right now, that, it's okay to inconvenience yourself a little bit, but push back. So there's a fascinating story of a lawyer on Newslaundry who he's on his way back from a hospital, and the police stops him and charges him falsely with a drunken case, that you were drunk. And pay up or whatever. So he gets booked and everything, and he finds curiously that there are witnesses to this. So a normal person would have just taken it and said, okay, because he ultimately gets out, the police was not able to, prove the case. Normal person would say, a bad incident, forget about it. And he wondered, who was this witness? And so he started looking into FIRs of that same police station, and he found that the same 2 witnesses in his case were there in 165 cases out of 170.
Yeah, the perpetual witnesses of stopping drunk.
And police can take stock witnesses when they're raiding because they need. So that's a normal thing, but not for murder. Like, you can't produce a witness for murder or for drunken driving. So he actually took this all the way up to Supreme Court, and it's such a nice thing to read that he took that effort to kind of really dig and find something and expose the system enough for the Supreme Court to say that this is a big problem. How can the police stations do this? It's a complete anathema to the rule of law. The second one is an interview with Mohammad Deepak. Anmol has done it. I think, again, the fact that he stood up for what he believed is right, for something so basic, but, something that we are forgetting, that there's this old Muslim man and he should not be, at the mercy of the mob. And the interview is so good because he's saying such basic things, but so clearly. That why are you targeting Muslims? I'm a Bajrang Bali fan, but I don't understand these Bajrang Dal guys. And I think a lot of the time, the liberals also over the last 10 years, because the BJP wins politically, we assume that this is common. Popular vote means popular rejection of secularism. It's very important to remember people have not rejected it. In smaller towns, smaller places, people believe that we have to live peacefully together. So do watch that interview, Good Samaritan, and great Jim Bro.
Yeah. Also, I think this is, again, I will not generalize by saying all liberals think so, but many Twitter liberals from the journalistic community have a certain disdain for religiosity, which I think is stupid. You may not be religious, but don't assume anybody who has a value system that is fucked.
Yeah.
So, whether it is someone who has a tika, or sometimes, if there is, I understand, I judge Janeus for different reasons. But not every religious symbol is something to be scoffed at. And I just think that's a really dumb attitude to have. So I have several recommendations. One is The Atlantic's piece on the murder of the Washington Post by Ashley Parker. Do check that out.
Yeah.
But more important than that, I have some really important news that various news organizations have put on their Insta, which I will just tell you in quick succession. India Today has posted, importantly, Yami Gautam or Samantha Prabhu, whose take on the same dress wins. So you do tell us, because these are important issues. Then Ananya Pande drops major nostalgia as she shares throwback photos from 2016, captioning them, 2016 was really lit. It was really it. And she shares, really it, man. Swipe to take a look. Stay updated with all stories that matter. Download Hindustan Times.
They've also said this.
Yes. In the same post, stay updated with all the stories that matter. From 2016, she has 2016 was really it, man. Then India Today, throwback photos of Kareena Saif from their early years. Because these are all important stories. Then Nupur Sanan shares pictures from her Chuda ceremony with family, in case you want those Chuda ceremonies. Then India Today, Hrithik Roshan admits his obsession with Bollywood biceps in a throwback post where he's flexing his bicep. These are all important
these guys
stories.
Should start charging royalty or something.
Right.
Whatever they put on Insta, they just make news out of it.
Then India Today again, Ananya Pande shared a serene glimpse on Instagram expressing her devotional side with the caption, Om Namas Parvati Pate Har Har Mahadev.
Serene side.
Then one that is truly, I think, worthy of gender justice and what any man should hope to be. Hindustan Times tells us with a photograph which is just a bunch of people and you can see half of Sunny Leone. Salman Khan was seen patiently standing in the queue, allowing Sunny Leone to go ahead of him first, a courteous gesture that caught attention. Stay updated with all the stories that matter on the Hindustan Times. So you fucking stay updated with these stories that matter. If you're not fucking staying updated with the stories that matter, you don't deserve journalism.
But this is amazing that he patiently waited
for a
sweet gesture. And everyone noticed.
In a courteous gesture, everyone noticed and we've posted on Instagram. And finally, Hindustan Times has a picture of that cricketer who's her husband. She's married to a cricketer, right? Atiya Shetty. KL Rahul.
Sunny Leone?
KL Rahul. No, Atiya Shetty. KL Rahul.
Oh.
Atiya Shetty has shared a photo with her husband, cricketer KL Rahul, as they clocked their third wedding anniversary. Taking to Instagram, she posted the loved up picture. Stay updated with all the stories that matter. Download the Hindustan Times. So,
I'll just follow them on Instagram. Na? Why will I follow Hindustan Times? I'll directly follow Ananya Pande.
You've got to stay updated with stories that matter. Hindustan Times, you are doing a service that is beyond any journalistic exercise that has ever happened. So do continue to give us these stories because I'm going to recommend this every week. On that note, I would like to thank all of you for making Newslaundry what it is at 14 and at 14. Be a part of I Built NL campaign. I'd also like to thank my wonderful co-panelists, Jayashree, Manisha Pande.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our crew who has made this Hafta possible. Anil, who has been with Newslaundry since we started. Even before that, he has tolerated me for many shows where we traveled around the country. Our wonderful producer, Priyali, and our wonderful other producer, Ashish. And all of you, of course. Thank you for making us what we are. Have a fantastic weekend. Have a good... Who's, by the way, doing the song this week? Is it me?
You can do it since it's your birthday.
But it's not my birthday. My birthday is in August.
For the birthday, you can pick a song, I think.
So, yes, I will leave you with this song that I dedicate to all of you who made Newslaundry possible.